Hi.
Hello.
Good evening.
This should say my name on it.
Very nice to see you here, council member.
Likewise, thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Hey,
Good
Jerry.
evening, Alex. Good evening, David. And good evening, council member, and everybody else.
Thank you, Jerry. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. And you have a representative from your office here at the same time.
That's right.
Good. I'm just.
Where am I?
Did you just say where I was?
Maybe. Oh, jeez. There we are. Mute.
Let's just give it a couple more minutes before we kick it off. And for quorum's sake here, it's a bit confusing today because we have this joint committee, but I have a roster of both committees in front of me. And I think we only will need a quorum technically for that second half, that back half of the meeting, the second item. And so we'll try to stay, get started promptly, and then hopefully a quorum will catch up with us.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, good evening, maybe.
Hi, Ty. Yeah, it's Karen Ellis. How are you?
Hi. Why don't we get started? So thank you everyone for being here. This is a joint meeting of the Land Use Landmarks Committee and the Parks and Environment Committee. Actually, the name of the Parks Committee is longer than that, but I forget what the third thing is. And very nice to see everyone. So we have two items formally on the agenda today. One is a sort of update on the Gowanus rezoning. The quarterly updates that we were promised are kicking off, and also have a presentation from DEP on the salt lot. And members of the land use committee have seen some thinking tossed around on email about the particular application that we can get into. I want to say one thing and then ask Councilmember Hanif, who we're very lucky to have here today, to say a few words. I wanted to recognize that our very own Ty is taking a new job, and this is actually going to be his last meeting with us. And I hope you will agree that Ty has been enormously helpful and invaluable to the committee. I'm really not sure how we're going to do this without him. Landmarks applicants in particular are going to really be screwed. Without him, at least until someone else climbs the steep learning curve. So Ty, if you want to say a few words, but seriously, I mean, we will miss you in this role.
I
Thanks,
second
Alec.
everything Alex said. Sorry. I just had
Thank
to get my
you.
2 cents.
No, thank you, Alec and Dave. I appreciate it. And in fact, the professionalization that both of them have brought to this committee over the last couple of years has a lot to do with my new position. Actually, I'm moving on to be a capital projects manager for a firm called Zabatkin, where I'll be working on all manner of stuff in major civic institutions like St. Patrick's Cathedral and
I've
the
heard of
Natural History Museum, among others. Really looking forward to it. I will be with the board still through the middle of July. So I'll be processing our now 3 pending landmarks applications for next month. That's my parting gift to David, is 3 more landmarks applications. And I'm also hoping to stick around in some capacity and hopefully eventually become a full board member is honestly a goal of mine. So hoping to see all of you again as soon as we can. So thanks guys, I really appreciate that.
Alec, can I say something?
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay. Ty, I've known you for a great number of years when you first came to the board, and you've grown tremendously. We've benefited from that growth. And obviously, congratulations. And at the same time, how dare you leave us? We're going to miss you.
Thanks very much, Jerry.
And I'm going to miss you personally. You've been a friend. You've been helpful in a lot of things that I've called the board office about. So seriously, all kidding aside and all snide remarks aside, congratulations, good luck, and love to have you back as a board member. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks very much, Jerry. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ty. Now you have permission to turn your camera off and return to being the wizard behind the curtain.
Thank you.
Good luck, Ty.
And I see Councilmember Ressler joined us first. Has joined us also, but I wanted to ask Councilmember Hanif, who was here first, Lincoln, if she would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Alec. Do you want me to just get into the conversation, or did you?
Yeah, no, good.
Yeah,
Just
okay,
who would like to
perfect.
start? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ty, good luck on the move, and also congratulations, and really sweet to hear from members of this board just share how it's been having you here. So I know you will be missed, and your impact to this board will be missed too, and understanding very well that your shoes will be hard to fill. So one, just really grateful that we are here. Tonight marks the first quarterly meeting of the Gowanus Rezoning project, and my team, alongside Councilmember Ressler's team, have been hard at work with a planning group, points of agreement planning group built out of the Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice, and in partnership with members of this community board. And so I just want to extend gratitude to all the Gowanus residents, all the community organizers, our neighbors, this community board, and everybody who's organized for years to get us here. We hosted two planning committee meetings and are excited that we're at a stage where we're almost bringing on a facilitator to help us build out our points of agreement Gowanus Oversight Task Force. And so that's what I'll share a little bit more about here in terms of what we've been up to over the last couple of months. The role that my office and Councilmember Ressler's office are playing is to ensure that the points of agreements that were put together by this community, 56 of them, are met, that we are holding the city accountable, and we do that by forming this task force. And so beyond tonight's meeting, the next and upcoming meetings, which may or may not be quarterly, all contingent on how the facilitator wants to move in conjunction and collaboration with the members that make up the oversight task force, but will be taken over by the facilitator at that point, not the community board. So this first meeting is hosted by the community board. As you all may or may not know, this is the first time that a task force is being established in response to a neighborhood-wide rezoning, and we hope that what we create together serves as a model for greater accountability and community engagement in the future. So we hosted a meeting in March and April to create a request for proposals for said facilitator, with great input and feedback from the Points of Agreement Planning Group, which consisted of nominees from this community board, our elected offices across federal, state, and the council members and the comptroller's office, the public advocate's office, our NYCHA Tenant Association presidents, local organizations pulled out from the Gowanus Neighborhood Coalition for Justice, SBIDC, Fourth on Fourth, and some members of the community at large. And then, so right now we're in the process of determining, with the support of the Points of Agreement Planning Group, who will be the facilitator. It's been a thorough process, and we are really working well on timeline to onboard somebody by early July, and having them onboarded and contracted by the end of July. So that's also been really good in terms of staying according to the timeline that was put together to be able to bring on a facilitator. What the planning group helped us do was come up with the criteria for the interviews, for reviewing and ranking the proposals, which I can share here after I'm done sharing. But so far, we received 5 applicants. They include Public Works Partners, James Lima Planning and Development, Pratt Center for Community Development, Melissa Johnson Associates, and Hester Street. And right now, interviews are still being conducted, and folks are putting a ranking together to put forward to the broader Points of Agreement Planning Group to vote on and be selected. So we're this process is still very much underway this month, and one of the issues that has come up is around the funding of the facilitator, which right now is just for 2 years through the Ford Foundation of $145,000. And so one of the things that Councilmember Ressler and I are working towards is to get an agreement or a commitment for continued funding for this work. The Fifth Avenue Committee is the fiscal sponsor. So Ford Foundation is contributing the grant of $145,000 to the Fifth Avenue Committee, which is acting as a fiscal sponsor. That is their only role here. Fifth Avenue Committee is not managing the facilitator. It's our 2 offices that are managing the facilitator and ensuring that they're doing their work to move along the implementation of the Points of Agreement. I'll end there because you may have some questions and we can get into more details, but I'll pass it along to Lincoln in case I missed anything in this detailed intro.
You definitely didn't miss anything. I am very happy for us to kind of play Robin to your Batwoman on this one and support and be a partner in this effort. If I didn't mess up that metaphor. But I just wanted to really thank and echo your sentiments about thanking CB6 for your leadership here. I think that, part of the reason that we have this framework in place with a hopefully really strong and able facilitator coming on board next month is because of the advocacy that you all played in and the advocacy that you all successfully advanced in the rezoning process. And as somebody who represents a district where we went through the downtown Brooklyn rezoning and the Greenpoint Williamsburg rezoning, where 15 years later, many of the most central commitments of those rezonings have not yet been realized. Like, I am very deeply committed to being as effective a partner as I can to Councilmember Hanif and to the entire, community, to make sure that the 56 really compelling items and the points of agreement are fully realized and realized swiftly. And the portion of our district that is most involved in the rezoning, I guess you would say, has been one of the areas is the NYCHA developments. And I just wanted to add that we have been actively working with NYCHA to ensure that the $200 million have been advocated for Gowanus and Wyckoff are swiftly dispersed. And I know that was another major priority for CB6. And so we have set up monthly meetings with tenant leaders at Wyckoff Gardens and NYCHA leadership and at Gowanus houses. Gowanus took a little longer to get off the ground just because they were going through some transitions in their leadership on the resident association. But we are, I think, moving forward. We've already had one larger community meeting with Wyckoff residents. We'll be doing the same with Gowanus residents in the near future. And so we're, laser focused on that component. But I just, wanted to, add that, Shahana's team, Mia and my colleague Arvind have been our primary folks that have been involved here. They've done a spectacular job and really appreciative of the hard work and the quality of the work that they've both invested here. And to all the members of the community who have been actively involved in helping to ensure that the commitments made from last year are commitments kept this year and moving forward. And I really, Alec, it's always good to be with you. You're my second favorite, Sharon back to your sister Anna, who who will always hold that spot. And I wanted to also just thank Ty for your work. I feel like you've been making Mike look good for a long time, and maybe we're going to see now that the emperor doesn't have any clothes. But
about time someone said that, council member.
Look, I'm here to speak truth. But like Shahana said, happy to take any questions or provide any further insight and support in any way we can to her and of course to the whole community.
Thank you to both of you. Okay, I don't know whether we have any questions from the committee about what we just heard from the council members, but we are about to get a presentation from DCP that is the meat and potatoes of the update. And so that would be a time to direct questions about the update itself. So are there any questions for the council members sort of about what you've heard, that is what the status of the task force now, where it's headed, and what its sort of tentative goals are? If not, we'll move briskly to DCP and thank the council members for being there. And I want to reiterate, Mia and Arvind have been, enormously helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec, and thank you both council members. I would say we don't have necessarily a presentation, which actually segues into a little of what I was going to say, but actually both council members gave tremendous updates, and actually I think that is one of the biggest pieces of this moving forward. Tonight, as many of you know, if there are folks who are new to this, the Gowanus plan was just approved late last year in November. So there's not a ton of updates on capital projects. There has been a lot of stuff going on in the neighborhood, as you have physically seen, that we can provide numbers on and give you updates around. We do look forward to the task force being online with the facilitator and coming up and working with them and you all on a good forum and process with timely updates for you all. And so I think I actually am quite moved by all this, because I think way back in June of 2018, when we put out the Gowanus framework, one of the last pages was a call to action, but it wasn't just about city agencies. It was about everybody in government, local electeds, city agencies, community board members, but also just regular folks, because there's so many aspects to planning for a neighborhood. And it's not just agencies, it's not just local electeds, it takes collective action. And it is inspiring to see this real methodical due diligence occur with that planning group. And we're very, excited and hopeful for this to blossom and move forward. They have, been tried in the past. Actually, I think CB1 had a task force that did not work well. And I think this process starting off is very hopeful for us, and we are here to also help as much as we can, because as we are working together collectively for the betterment of implementing this plan and the generations that will benefit from all of the new housing and parks and jobs and infrastructure, that's just going to be deepened the closer we are together. So I will note actually that so this will be quarterly throughout the years. There, at different parts of the year, different aspects of data are released. We are actually quite close to going back to what Councilmember Ressler had mentioned about Greenpoint Williamsburg and downtown Brooklyn. One of the things that is new as of this last administration is what we call the rezoning commitments tracker, which is something that is required to be updated yearly. We're at that time. And so I believe next week, June 30th, that commitment tracker will be live and updated with the Gowanus plan, points of agreement, commitments, and statuses from the different agencies that own those projects or items. And also all the other plans that are out there that have been making progress. You can see where things are moving and where they're ongoing. It's actually quite an amazing site to check out. So next week there won't be a lot of updates, but you will see an update on that site with those items. We wanted to go over at least 3, and then of course we'll have questions. We can take questions, and obviously one of the great things about we'll be coming back with updates is that we can always handle questions that we don't have answers for, either in the interim by sending it to the community board or the council members, or coming back at the next update. I would say actually one personal update that I wanted to share. In the past few months, I've actually transitioned to being the deputy director of the Queens Office of City Planning. We are going through what, like everyone else in both private and government sectors, through a lot of turnover in staff. And so I am helping as long as I need to help with this transition for Gowanus, because obviously I've been working on it for many, many years, and we all care about it. And I have so much in my head that it is a lot better for us that I continue to work on this. So at some point you'll be seeing less and less of me. For now, you get to continue to see my face and hear my voice. Hopefully it's not too jarring for you all. So we wanted to at least get through some of the DOB data about the stuff that you're seeing out in the physical space, waterfront certs, and also touching on the Gowanus IBZ. And if I miss anything, you guys can always question and ask, and we can take it from there. So we did collect some DOB data, permit data from both DOB Now and DOB BizWeb. Those are 2 different systems. The DOB Now is a relatively new system with different sort of nomenclatures and data, macro data language. But projects will show up in both. So if you are looking at sites in your community, you want to look at both BizWeb and DOB Now portal. If you have any questions about how to look for them, you can always, reach out to us in the Brooklyn office, and we can help, help you look through those. DOB Now is more intuitive, but the whole thing is not going to be, relatively intuitive if this is not your day job. So between those 2 sources, we have found there have been 15 demolition permits issued, 13 new building permits issued, a bit over 12 or so foundation and earthwork permits, and a bit over 10 to 15 general construction permits. I'm giving a little bit of a hedge on the last 2 buckets because they're a little bit harder to decipher than demolition and new buildings, but we wanted to share those as well. on that data, we need to look at the specific line items. Some of these permits are part of related work for same sites. What we were going to do is look at this more closely and clean it up. We got this just in the past couple of days, and as I mentioned, even for people that it's our job, it takes a little bit of work to parse this out. So we can follow up and share that out with you. And actually, I think what we would like to do is put it in a map form and share that with you so you can see geographically where these are landing. On the waterfront, which is somewhat related to the DOB data, at DCP, we processed 9 remediation foundation certs along the canal. That's to allow for remediation to occur on those sites and advance quickly. Related to that, and also related to the DOB data and a lot of the demolition that has been ongoing, that has, I know we've heard from the council members and other folks related to some of the pile driving and some of the demolitions. That work is occurring at a quicker pace than maybe had been anticipated. The elephant, not really an elephant in the room, we all know, is 421A. Folks were rushing to get their 421A vesting in. And so those remediation has to occur. Obviously, they have to move forward. So we, if you are new to this, for old community board members, please allow me to go a little bit of a tangent here. That the waterfront access plan that was passed in November requires a full waterfront certification process that can take up to a year or more, depending on the sophistication of the development team and or the complexity of the site. And that would not really allow for things to move, remediate, and also to sort of move forward in a manner that would allow people to vest. So these remediation foundation certs were processed to protect the waterfront access plan and the esplanades, while also allowing for remediation to proceed, which is desperately needed. As we all know, the crux of the work in Gowanus is to clean up the canal and the uplands as quickly as we can. And so we processed those since November, along with 2 upland waterfront certs. What are upland waterfront certs? They're essentially sites that are on a waterfront block, but they don't trigger waterfront access, waterfront public access area. Because they're like, for instance, if you have a site that's basically fronting on Bond Street that doesn't touch the canal proper, it technically is on a waterfront block, but it doesn't have to provide waterfront access. But you do have to come to DCP to prove that, because we don't want people to basically go through that process or basically file with DOB when they should actually provide Esplanade waterfront access. We are currently in the process with 3 waterfront access plan certifications, 3 officially. We do expect 1 more, as we have had some conversations with both council members, staff, and Community Board 6. We committed in the points of agreement to pushing these developers to engage with the community around design early. We continue to do so. Last I heard, they had not reached out, and we're working, and Alec is shaking his head, to publicly push people. Shame, I don't know, figure it out. Work on a letter helping to disseminate information. This is stuff that will benefit, obviously, the community. It'll also benefit the design, because it'll have more feedback from the community. And so we'll continue to uphold our commitments and to push that along. And we'll work with the community board after this meeting. On the Gowanus IBZ work, as many of you already know, we committed to continuing to engage the community around the vision plan that was released a year ago, or over a year ago at this point. We also recently announced work around a citywide initiative known as Zoning for Economic Opportunity. While that was just announced, the Zoning for Economic Opportunity, a lot of work from the Gowanus Plan and the IBZ Vision Plan have helped inform the need for that citywide work. And so while the proposal for the citywide text amendment or zoning for economic opportunity is in formation. There will be forthcoming community engagement. We see this as a good first step in furthering the vision plan in the Gowanus IBZ. And we'll make sure there are local engagement and feedback opportunities here in Gowanus so that we can help identify issues and opportunities that the citywide proposal may address. And if there are any other new tools that come about from the citywide process, we can also, through that engagement and in the future, see if there's opportunities to address it locally. So that wraps up my update. I don't know if I'll hand it back to Alec, and we'll take questions as we always do.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, so we can go through questions that we have from members of the committee, and we'll also have an opportunity for anyone who's here from the public to ask questions after the committee has exhausted itself. Joanna, I see you have your hand up first.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see you, Jonathan. Congrats on the new gig. I do have a number of questions. Just on the ground reporting, I walk around the rezoned area a lot and have a lot of concerns about on the ground safety, just for the few projects that have gotten off the ground so far, particularly blocked sidewalks, blocked bike lanes, and ADA access during construction. Wondering if you guys ran any 311 data to see how many complaints have come in, and then also a request if you guys could use some of your civic powers to get the 311 app more robust around these areas, so that as neighbors do notice issues around the rezoning, it's just make it as easy as possible for people to report issues. Right now, the 311 app doesn't have any of those issues as an option. There need to be like more DOB things, more DOT things. Also, air quality would be a great thing to throw in there. So that was another question I had, just in terms of the demolition. How has DEP been monitoring, and have there been any issues with the, when we're tearing down the old stuff? So yeah, I'll kind of leave it at that for now. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Joanna, and thank you for congratulating me. Yeah, these are all great points and great things to bring up and great questions. We did not pull 311 data. We can certainly try that and share. I think we did that in the past for some of our working group meetings. It's a good idea. Sorry, I didn't think of it before coming to this meeting. As to updating 311, I don't know what that process is or how hard it is. I would love to also make updates when I take pictures of things in my community. I think we can certainly push and try. It would be helpful maybe to have bullets of what you just said shared through the CB6 or whoever else. I mean, I know in terms of construction that DOB handles a lot of that, and other agencies have their own monitoring programs. I think all that is very important. I think there was also a discussion in the POA that around a potential construction committee. Whether that's the CB or that's the task force, I think that's definitely something that should be considered and addressed in some capacity. I think the on the boots information is absolutely important, communicating up, but also we have information like when remediation will start, and we can be able to provide a heads up on that so folks are not caught unaware like happened in late May.
Thank you. I have a few questions that are just sort of like ticking through the POA, looking at sort of timelines that are imminent or like that we might well be on the way of accomplishing some of them. And so that's like no trick questions. I just was scanning through the POA. So one is, do you know whether the MAP initiative which it says in the POA this is a public safety oriented initiative respecting public housing. The POA says that it would begin July 1st, 2022, and that's rather soon. And I wonder whether we're scheduled to start it then.
Yeah, thanks, Alec. I know that was a really important sticking point for Councilmember Levin. I don't have a update on that tonight, but we'll certainly, especially since it's a week away, get on that, turn it around, and give you an update.
Thank you. Another that's sort of in the same vein is there are a number of Gowanus business initiatives that were scheduled to begin in 2022, a program manager and a particular Gowanus business grant program scheduled to begin in 2022. And I wonder if there's been an update there. And there's also for Q1 2022 was supposed to be a specific outreach with respect to women and minority owned businesses.
Yeah, no, those are both good points to bring up. The process, at least by which we get updates, which I think will be a little different with, it'll be a work in progress, and I'm sure we'll figure it out together, is that, the process by which we get updates is through this rezoning commitment tracker. And that is a process that we don't have complete control over. So we should have a lot of this. I mean, there will be an update in the next week on that, but we can certainly ask for sort of a specific update on these that should have been started in the past few months, since that's, a live question. So I'll add that. We'll add that to the list.
No, I appreciate it. And I think, that this sort of illustrating that, probably for future task force meetings, when that's up and running, and this will be, facilitator's job, not mine, but, like getting SBS here and some of the other agencies that are going to be particularly it's going to be their domain, to answer some of these particular questions.
Yeah, and tonight, I didn't mention that at the top, so pardon me, but we do have agency reps here. They're not in the panel, but they, other than actually let me see if she's still here, our dear friend Sarit from HPD, but we do have, I believe, DEP and some others that are listening as well. So I agree. I mean, I think one of the things, I think we've, the council members mentioned this, and I tried to mention at the top, this is the first meeting. I think the next meeting probably will definitely be more structured. I think it'll still be a work in progress. I think each time we go through these things, we're going to get better informed. Obviously, a professional facilitator will also be able to focus on this in ways that we, with very limited staff at the moment, are having trouble keeping up with a lot of things. So the next few, I think we're going to we'll continue getting better. Like a lot of things also that I appreciate about this community board and community, that throughout the past 6 years of the Gowanus planning process, is that we sort of are flexible, and we can pivot. If something's not working, let's not do it. Or if we're not responding and addressing something in a way that is meaningful, then let's fix it. So.
No, I appreciate that very much. Jerry, I see your hand.
Okay, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Jonathan, congratulations on your new position. But I'm also very happy that you're sticking with us on this. Your non-paper knowledge is vast on this. You mentioned earlier that the developers are not exactly rushing off to share their waterfront plans, waterfront access plans and waterfront plans with us. Is there any way, because obviously that's one of the important points that we would like to be involved in, and also have the community involved in? When I say we, I mean both the board and the community. And is there any way that this can be corrected because this could become a pattern down the road. And that would be a problem, as each one does their own little delaying tactics. The plans for waterfront and waterfront access are very important to the community, as I'm sure you know, and everybody on the Parks Committee and the Land Use Committee knows that too. So I get a feeling that it wasn't by accident that they're slow. So how do we get them to adhere to the process? I'm not looking for anything faster. I'm
Yep.
looking for us to have enough time and for them to do what they're supposed to do in the correct time frame.
Absolutely. We are too. To give a little more background for folks that aren't as knowledgeable as Jerry, one of the issues we have is that, you know, if these development sites along the canal are pursuing waterfront certifications, those actions, a certification is a ministerial action. So we're kind of acting as DOB in this sense, reviewing plans. They don't require community engagement. They don't require referral to the community board, despite the fact that we all agree that, you know, we've been working on this all for many decades, and came up with a vision. And now, you know, sites are doing actual designs, and they will benefit from closer connection with you all and others in their design. So we don't have teeth, basically, is the upshot of what I was just trying to say. We're trying to use other powers that we have, including this, to bring it up. We also, you know, one of the things we asked about from, you know, Alec, that we can continue, you know, offline as well, is what, you know, whether there's a letter or something else that, you know, we can either provide information to you all that would help. You know, we are here we've pushed a number of times. We're very open to using whatever soft powers we have to, you know, push or coerce folks to do this. So,
As a community board member, and I think most community boards know that it's our bark that's more important sometimes than our bite. So when we don't have the teeth because of the regulations, we have to bark very loud, and I guess this will be the start.
yep. So, and we're helped to amplify that. We're here to help.
Good. Thank you.
You know, and Jerry, you know, it's possible that we'd want to entertain a resolution on this topic. Are there any other questions from members of the committee? If not, we'll, you know, it won't be your last opportunity. We can go to members of the public. So why don't we do that? Okay, if you are an attendee on the attendee side and you would like to ask a question of the city, can you please use the raise hand function? And then we will give you an opportunity to ask a question, and ask you to keep it to 2 minutes. And are there any questions from any members of the community? Surely someone has a question.
We're here for them.
We do have one hand, Alec.
Great.
Lynn Newman. Lynn, I'm going to promote you to the panel now. You have a couple of minutes to speak. You're over now. You should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, Lynn.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. So I may have misheard, but I've been following on the tracker, and I thought Jonathan said that it was a yearly update. Can that be expedited in any kind of way, as we're looking at tracking trying to track as much in real time what's going on the ground? A year is like, you know, things have already happened. So can the city do better in terms of like quarterly updates on the tracker?
Thanks for your question, Lynn. We'll ask. I'll say, I think it's been asked in the past, and I believe it's been kept at a year. I think for Gowanus, you know, in just to make sure, and I think you understand this, but it won't be a black box of we go away for a year and we come back and give you an update on the status of projects. I think with the task force and the facilitator and the commitment to quarterly updates, while the commitment tracker may not be updated in those real-time instances, we can still provide updates on projects in, you know, at those meetings. So I mean, to your actual question, we will ask and we can come back with, you know, an answer, whether it's a yes or a no, but we'll always take this back and ask.
Thanks, Jonathan. And we can, you know, we're happy, GNCJ is happy to advocate for that in any way we can and work with you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that for many of us, the whole reason to specify quarterly was to get precisely because we want those faster updates. And I think that everybody's on the same page that that's the purpose of the task force. Just the question about whether it's going to be reflected in that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are increasingly and hopefully more, you know, neighborhoods that are added to the commitment tracker. And there's just so many agencies and so many projects that, you know, I think it really is a huge, you know, city hall mayoral Herculean task to get all those updates. You know, so if you do it for one neighborhood, you also have to do it for all neighborhoods. So I think, you know, the fact that we do have a task force and commitments here for quarterly updates, my crystal ball is that's where we're going, but we'll get the answer and give it, send it and respond to you guys.
Thank you. Okay, I see Arvin, your hand is up, and then we'll go to Owen. Arvin?
Jonathan, thanks for that response. I think that was good. I'll also add that the council members RFP that our office has released specifically asked the facilitator to keep track of and to monitor, to kind of have a side points of agreement commitment tracker, and based on the facilitator, the way that they will want to run their meetings, which will be public facing, that's another layer of accountability and of tracking. So definitely excited to see if DCP can keep a more constant tracker on the mayor's office website, but that facilitator will also have its own system running as well to keep the community informed.
Okay, thank you. Owen?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So my question is, I'd like to know the fiscal year, the funding for construction of the public open space at Public Place, what year that funding has been allocated, how much the funding is, and I guess, yeah, that's probably just it. I'm just I'm trying to understand the timing of that in relation to the over 6,000 apartments that we're expecting soon. So if city planning could let us know the amount and when we can expect those dollars to be engaged with design firm, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. Sorry, I got, thank you, Hildegard, for going on mute. Sure, I think that was in the points of agreement, Owen, that with the fiscal year.
It is not. The year is undefined as to when the commitment's going to be made or executed, and that's the reason why I'm asking the question.
Okay, I think okay, so I'm remembering something about a target date. I think, as you know, and I'll work. We can obviously ask Parks and get a response. I think, as you know, though, Owen, one of the issues with Gowanus Green, formerly known as Public Place, is that the EPA staging is very much a live question about whether that site will need to be used as a staging site. So the timing of the park and that development, I believe, is still up. So in terms of allocations, we let's see, I think, we can come back with if there's been any change in that, but the money was committed to in terms of the timing has always been a question. Obviously, we advocate for advancing the absolutely critical, 100% affordable housing on Gowanus Green that is desperately needed in this community, along with, as you note, Owen, the important park there. Those discussions, between DEP and Law Department and EPA, I believe are still ongoing. So that can definitely be something that we will ask Parks and respond to, but that's my current understanding.
Yeah, just looking for the dollar amount and what fiscal year it's going to start to be spent. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Owen. Do we have any other questions? I'm seeing in the chat here, sorry, it's SJ. I don't know if you have a question that you want to vocalize. I'm having a little trouble following your question in the chat. David, I see your hand.
There we go. Hey, Jonathan. So I just have a question. As you transition to your new position, is there going to be somebody who is stepping in your shoes, or rather big shoes to fill?
Yes. I mean, I think I'll give a little bit of a plug. The city planning has 64 open positions. The Brooklyn office, I think, has 5 to 7 or so, and Alex can correct me.
9.
9, great. The Queens office also has 7 open positions. So if we do need help, we need good people. It's challenging for government to really compete in this environment of high inflation. We can't increase our salaries fast enough to really attract good talent. And so that's been a real challenge with our applicant pool. I think that's important to say and share because that is a reality. We have an incredibly strong team in the Brooklyn office, and my ability to still be in DCP and contribute, it will remain. As I tell the Brooklyn office, I will never not be working on Gowanus or thinking about it. It sort of is part of me now. Jonah is still, here. He's on tonight. He's, as many of you know, the CB6 liaison and team leader now as well. And between him and Alex, myself, Sagi, and Amrita, we're covering it all at the moment. At some point, I imagine there would be someone. Maybe now I'm stepping on Alex's shoes here for delegation and internal structure, but I would imagine there would be somebody that would step into the shoes that we would, hook up a USB into the back of my head and download whatever in there. Thank you for the question, David.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, SJ, I think we're going to try to promote you so that you can ask a question, if that works.
SJ has been promoted. You can unmute yourself now.
Hi, thank you. My question about the tracker is really the specificity of the tracker in terms of identifying the actual developer and the key principles involved in the development process. And that has to do with the fact that at least on 4th Avenue, a lot of the development is listed by LCCs, which are pretty hard to decipher unless you have experience in that area. How much detail? I mean, I think this is also an opportunity to give more detail in a tracker about who's actually doing the building and who the main principals are. And is there anything happening with that?
Can you say that last part again? sorry, SJ. I'm trying to make sure I get to so I think, or maybe I'll just restate it. You can tell me what I'm wrong about.
Okay.
So I mean, at least from what I was where you started out, you said sort of developers as part of the commitment tracker or tracking. And at least on that part, we don't, they're not part of the points of agreement. They are not part of the commitments that were made on behalf of the city. Sort of, I think where you're going with some of this, and I think I saw a chat, your text pop up on my screen, but then I was distracted trying to answer David's question, was about LLCs and trying to look under the hood of them and understand who and where they're from. Is that where you're going with some of this?
That's certainly one of the issues.
Sure. I think there is, I believe, a link that we can share that is I think a state-run link that you can enter in certain information and look under the LLCs and try to get to other names. It may be a little bit of a rabbit hole. We have used that in the past, I believe, to try to do some ownership mapping in areas, and we can share that. I believe it still is useful. So we can do that in terms of tracking LLCs and tracking that development as part of the rezoning tracker. We don't do that. But if there's something in between that I'm missing.
Well, you said, for example, that one of the things that you might be presenting, that you hope to present, was a map of developers. And at least it would be a useful point on that map to do some of that identification, since that's that rabbit hole can be very confusing. And one of the whole points of the oversight committee was to help make things as transparent as possible for community residents.
Sure. I think, let us put our heads together on that. I mean, I think, public information is public. And, I think putting what we were thinking of was not that type of map, but a map of the permits. And you're saying, could you note sort of the ownership of it? I think, we don't have a special database, a lot of our work is in government, as you would probably know, and many of is we're doing the best with the resources we have and the information that we have, and sometimes both are limited. In this case, a lot of the stuff that we do share with you is just it's a lot of mundane work that we just sort of slog through over many hours. So I think we can. I'm thinking of sort of the, issues with any of this, and I may, let us put our heads together and see what we can include in our information that we share back to you. But I feel like we can do something here to help. Maybe it's not perfect, but I think, there's probably something to help with what you're raising.
Well, you've proven to be extraordinarily clever, Jonathan, and I'm sure that you all can come up with something that is a bit more definitive. And thank you for promising to try and do that.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm hedging just because I want to make sure that it's meaningful, right? We want to just put something out there and it lead everyone down the wrong path. So thank you.
Thank you, SJ. Hildegard?
Hi there. Thanks, David. Just responding to your text. That'd be good. Community members are real concerned about construction going on in Gowanus, specifically air emissions associated with construction going on in Gowanus. I know that all construction projects are supposed to have site safety plans, and I'm wondering if anybody other than the Department of Buildings, DOB, holds those site safety plans, and if yes, how can I get a hold of them? And if no, how can I get a hold of them?
That's a good question. I'm sure I could venture something, but I feel like let's just get the right answer and get back to you on that. So.
Okay, that'd be really helpful because people are very concerned about, pile driving and fugitive emissions and the impact not only on workers but on people who are living nearby. And the difficulty when dealing with air emissions is that workers leave the job, but people who live there never do.
Well put. That's well put. So we will. I have some acronyms in my head, but I don't want to misspeak. So we'll.
Okay, anything that you can tell me would be monumentally helpful.
Yep. Thank you.
Joanna?
A little bit related to Hildegard's point in my prior question about the emissions. I've run into a catch-22 when reporting any kind of public safety issue to the city, which is that if you use the word dangerous condition phrase, 311 immediately insists on putting you through to 911, and 911 operators really couldn't care less if you're calling about air emissions or a blocked bike lane or that sort of thing. They are dangerous. Is there anything that planning can do to help smooth out that little trick of the system? Because it doesn't work right now. And people are coming up against things every day.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Honestly, I feel you so much because I do this in my same neighborhood. I'm like, I don't want to talk to the police on this. None of police matter. But it is a dangerous thing, and why why does it have to be all or nothing? I don't know. I think someone somewhere has a reason, whether it's satisfactory or not. I don't know either, but we can add that to the 311 questions. I really appreciate them as well, and hope maybe there's a way for this and other stuff to push us to take the next step on 311 if it's possible. I'm sure I'm also saying something, and somewhere somebody that's their job, and they're like, oh my gosh, you don't even know how many issues we have with this, that, and the other. So I know the world is really complex. So I also want to leave a little bit of room for real issues with making these seemingly very understandable upgrades to something that we've really come to need and use. So we will add this to the 311 questions, and we'll get back to you on it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So Jerry, do you have anything? You're muted, Jerry.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting about that.
That's okay.
I may, based on my question about the waterfront access plans and your comment, and the fact that I also said we need to have maybe a stronger bark, I put together a draft motion, and if it suits everybody, that's fine. If not, I will not be upset. Motion is, over the years of working on the Gowanus rezoning, CB6 made sure that waterfront access and improvement was an integral part of the rezoning. CB6 wants to emphasize that developers' waterfront access plans be shared with CB6 and the community as early as possible, so that any input from the community and Community Board 6 can be incorporated, and to make the plans make it a better waterfront access plan. That's my draft motion.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Maddie, thank you very much. And Jerry, I wonder if you would consider an amendment, which would be to alter the resolution to ask not just that the plans be shared, but that they come to CB6.
I said I drafted something very quickly.
Yeah.
Any improvement is welcome.
Yeah. So would you accept that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So then we have something, and it's a motion on the floor. Is there discussion on this motion? And typically, we do not ask the city to comment at this time, but Jonathan, I don't know if you, is this in line, the resolution you just heard, is that in line with the commitment that you think the city made to urge folks to come to the community board?
Yes, it is. It's also in our CPC report that I wrote together. So, yes.
Lovely. Okay. All right, if there's no discussion, I'm going to ask for anyone who opposes this motion to use the raise hand function. I unfortunately think we do not have a quorum, so this is just going to go to the executive committee as it is, but we will nevertheless take a tally. Joanna, are you against this one?
No, I'm sneaking in a point of discussion. Totally behind this particular motion, but wondering about whether we want to start doing individual motions about things that are already covered in the points of agreement, because it might imply that we care about this one thing more than everything else. And I just want to throw that out there for people to consider.
I think it's a good point. I think that we have a particular reason to be potentially concerned that time is ticking on this item. And so I would think that in the future, a lot of this will be the task force. But if, for example, in the future, there was an item that was behind schedule, that it would be appropriate for us to consider a resolution saying so. Jonathan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with all that. Although the points of agreement was between the city and the council members for, at the very end. So I think having, you guys have been on the record for so long, but it's now, right? And this is a different juncture than it was months ago. So I think it still very much is appropriate and good timing.
Jerry?
Jonathan said exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
So that's nothing.
Okay, so now we're voting again. So you're going to raise your hand if you're against this very controversial resolution. If you're abstaining, you can, let me know in the chat. And otherwise, that will be, passed in the absence of a quorum. And is there anything else, from the city before we switch gears to this half of the city, before we switch gears to the DEP presentation?
No.
Well, thank you as always for coming here, and we look forward to getting some follow-up from you on some of the questions we asked, and thanks again.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Good to see you. I'm going to hand the baton over to David now for this second part of our meeting, because I have something that may force me to log off a little early before it's completed. So, David.
Thank you, Alec. So as many of you know, or I'm sure all of you know, the salt lot is being redesigned to include a retention tank facility, a new sanitation, snowplow storage and salt storage facility, and a new space for the composting operation and GCC's nursery. There's been a couple public meetings. They've been very good. There's been a lot of good feedback. So I see that Kevin is here. I think, I don't know who's going to present.
Yes. Hi, David. I'm going to kick it off, and then we do have a presentation to run through, and some of the team members will do that. We ready to go?
Okay. Yeah, so Kevin Clark from DEP will start us off, and then we'll get into some of the particulars with the design professionals.
Great. Thank you, David. So as David mentioned, my name is Kevin Clark. I am a portfolio manager with the New York City DEP's Bureau of Engineering, Design, and Construction, and responsible for the planning, design, and construction of the 2 CSO tanks. We do have several members of the team here, the project team here, joining me from DEP, Hazen, Seldorf, and Scape. So if there are any questions that you have following the presentation, we should have the right people here to answer them. So we are here tonight to present the designs for the new DSNY salt shed and the interim compost facility, which is part of the first phase of work as we prepare the site for the construction of the second Gowanus Canal combined sewer overflow facility, aka the OH007 facility. So this project is a component of the federal Gowanus Superfund program mandated by the US EPA. And under that, under the Superfund program, DEP is required to construct 2 combined sewer overflow facilities. One is at the head end of the canal. We call that the Red Hook 34 facility. And this one at the bend of the canal, which we call the Owl's Head facility, or OH007 facility. So we are progressing the design for the Owl's Head CSO facilities head house, as well as the waterfront public open space, and we'll be back to share more on that in the coming months. As David just mentioned, DEP has held 2 public engagement meetings with great turnout in February and May, and each of those meetings included community workshops, which, the purpose of which was to get dialogue going to establish the community's priorities and visions for this site. We do appreciate that the construction sequencing and the various moving parts of this project are somewhat complex, and we're happy to answer any questions you have to the best of our ability. At this point, I'm going to pass the baton off to Kevin Keating of Seldorf Architects to walk you through the site context and the proposed design for the salt shed and interim compost facility.
Thanks, Kevin. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you all tonight. Please allow me just a little bit of your time to walk you around the site and introduce you to the salt shed and our proposed design for that. Here you go. If you're looking at our screen, you could see the Owl's Head site, which Kevin just mentioned. It's at the bend in the canal. I'll jump to the next slide here. So we're just kind of shifting the plan and reorienting it, but we are in the IBZ zone, the South Brooklyn Industrial Business Zone. Our site is the OH site, located at the north end of this zone. It's called the OH site. We are on a peninsula. The 6th Street turning basin is where my cursor is right now. And the canal continues north and bends just around here. Whole Foods, if you're familiar with it, you obviously know Whole Foods is where my cursor is currently. One of the big features here is the F-train viaduct, which actually leaves Carroll Street Station and makes its way over to Smith and 9th, and then eventually into 7th Avenue. These are the views from that train. This is a view I took on the way into the Carroll Street Station from the F train. You could see here the OH site highlighted, and the red highlight here indicates the new location for the salt shed. This is now a view looking north. This is from Smith and 9th Street Station. Again, you can see our overall site and the new position of the salt shed. So let me just walk you through what's on site currently. Basically, we have DSNY salt operations currently. You could see the DSNY salt lot and the yard around that, which houses the racks and the plow blades. Adjacent to that is big reuse composting facility that will be part of the shift that we will be making. These 2 facilities are kind of in essence parallel to each other. Big reuse operates the composting facility. They also work in tandem with Gowanus Canal Conservancy. A couple of other things to point out. Currently, there is an existing parking lot on the end of the peninsula. This is non-accessible to the public as we speak. The entire 6th Street turning basin is non-accessible to the public as we speak. We're hoping to change that. 5th Street bisects the site. That is in the process of being demapped. That will be demapped and turned into an access alley for the overall master plan of the site. So I'll just walk you around here. This is an image from the Whole Foods Esplanade. This is looking due west. You could see the F-train viaduct in the distance, and obviously the current condition of the salt shed as we speak. These 2 images, the page left here is a DOC facility. This is directly across the street on 2nd Avenue from our site. And the image on the right is basically right at the bend in the canal where it starts to make its way up north. Here are 2 images, both taken from 2nd Avenue. On page left is an image looking south, again, towards the F-train viaduct. Page right is an image from 2nd Avenue looking at what is currently 5th Street. Again, this is being demapped as part of the overall project. These are existing pictures of the existing conditions of the salt shed as we speak. And then page right is the existing compost facilities. So this is an overall image indicating the site as it will be during construction. The orange indicates the construction zone. The DSNY salt shed and the yard in red are located south of 5th Street. And you could see the temporary location for the composting facility, which will have direct access for people to drop off composting off 2nd Avenue. During the temporary condition here, all access will be in and out of the salt lot and composting from 2nd Avenue at the corner where my cursor is. This slide here is indicative of the location of the permanent CSO facility and DSNY salt shed and its permanent condition. You can see here that eventually we are hoping to reposition the composting facility off of 2nd Avenue and position it further west. It will be adjacent to eventually a community program that hopefully will be run by the GCC. Will be better placed in an overall position so that those two could work in tandem with each other. The balance of the site here, as you can see in yellow, is hopefully space that we can introduce waterfront access. We're working with our teams over at DEP and the rest of the overall team to develop this, and we will be forthcoming in presenting our ideas to you. Now we'll just zoom in. This is a plan of the temporary condition of the salt shed. Again, the salt shed is being positioned in its permanent location. What will be adjusted is the eastern side of the yard. But right now, it will be adjacent to the repositioned and temporary location for composting. This is now just a view of that composting and how we are locating the brown bays and the curating bays, which we just had a picture of before. Again, we will have access directly off the 2nd Avenue during this entirety of the temporary setup. This is now a view of the salt lot in its permanent condition. You can see here that we will have access for the salt trucks off of the access alley, and there will be discharge of those trucks off of 2nd Avenue where my cursor is. Now I'll walk you through the overall design proposal for the salt shed itself. This proposal will be reviewed by the New York City Public Design Commission next month or sometime in July. In order to properly design this facility, we and the team had many meetings with DSNY to understand their needs and requirements. So simply put, here are the main drivers. First, let's start with the salt pile. The salt is used to remove snow and ice during winter snowstorms. In order to maneuver this salt around the site, we are in need of installing push walls. This could withstand the force of the salt being pushed against it. And after that, we are basically in need of enclosing the salt, providing an enclosure above the salt to protect it from the elements. And then lastly, there will be 75 plow blades that we have to incorporate into the yard, and they will be on racks, three plow blades per rack. So now let me just walk you through our understanding of the site. As you all know, we are in the IBZ zone, the South Brooklyn Industrial Business Zone, which was established to grow and preserve industrial space in an urban environment when neighborhoods change quickly. The character of the site is distinctly industrial, and the surrounding Gowanus neighborhood is marked by a consistent and monochromatic material palette of low-rise warehouse type structures. It is this industrious character that the community has told us that they would like to uphold. The community has mentioned that they want the facilities to be true, honest, and representative of the Gowanus environment. These here are a series of photos that speak to us and are reflective of the prevailing character around the site. We agree with the community and believe that the architecture for these structures should be reflective of their surrounding aesthetic. Our effort is to make these buildings have the combination of grit and grace that is emblematic of the area. To that point, we have identified a selection of materials that are tough yet refined and industrious yet graceful. In keeping with the community's recommendation to keep these facilities honest, we are proposing 3 primary architectural elements: cast in place concrete for the push walls, corrugated metal siding for the enclosure above the pile, and a transparent screen made of metal mesh for the perimeter fencing. The material palette has been selected to be restrained and contextual to the neighborhood's industrial yards, sheds, and buildings. These materials will be applied in 3 simple yet functional forms. The first will be the concrete push wall. And you can see here that we are starting the wall at a very low elevation on 2nd Avenue. It will begin at an elevation of 2 feet and make its way up to an elevation of 12 feet above grade. Secondly, sorry about that. Secondly, we're incorporating a corrugated metal skin, metal paneling, which is employed as a refined surface treatment over the shed. And thirdly, there will be a screen, a metal screen seen here on page right, that will create the balance of the perimeter fencing, which will provide a visual transparency as one is walking along 2nd Avenue. Ultimately, the industrial yet refined design is intended to sit within the landscape, striking the balance between natural systems and industry, which is defining characteristics of Gowanus. Some suggestions of the waterfront landscaping are included here. You can see here, for those that may not be familiar, this is an elevation of the south end of the salt shed in its permanent form. We were working with our friends over at Scape to develop the landscaping plans that will eventually come back to the community and share upon our thoughts and feedback that we've had. But what we were trying to do on this front surface area here is to provide multi-story planting that will be able to be partial screen to the overall facility itself. This next slide here is the same elevation, but this will be how it looks during its temporary condition. The composting facility is over here on page right, again, directly off of 2nd Avenue and accessible to the public. This is an elevation of the salt lot from 2nd Avenue. You can see the salt pile under the simple and refined form of the salt shed in the distance. The metal mesh screen in the foreground provides pedestrians visual access to the functions and happenings of the facility within. This is the same elevation. This is how it will be in its temporary condition. The salt lot is in its permanent location, but the composting and aeration bays are off of 2nd Avenue. This is an overall site section. It's cut through the yard and through the salt shed itself. Here you can see the subtle rise of the concrete push wall and the interactions of forms as they meet each other. This again is another section. This is a section through the salt shed itself. There will be photovoltaic cells on top of the salt shed. And these last 2 images are renderings. This first one is a rendering of the salt shed in its temporary condition. And this last one is a rendering of the salt shed in its permanent condition. Just want to end with saying that we believe with the community that industrial architecture should be true to its function. Yet these functions and forms can be designed and developed in a way that provides a neighboring backdrop that is subtle and intriguing. Again, I thank you for your time, and my team and I look forward to continue to work with and hear from the community. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kevin. Is Scape here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, Diana. Take it away.
Well, I'm Anna Hochhalter. I'm a landscape architect for Scape. We don't have slides to present on the landscape. That will be forthcoming as part of a separate package. I can turn it to Kevin Clark to speak more about kind of the timing and the cadence of that, but I'm here to answer any questions about the public realm or the public meetings.
Yeah, David, I probably should have included that in the introduction. So, you know, we're kind of doing this in a stepwise approach. Since we are constructing this new salt shed in its permanent location, you know, we are going through the PDC process for that now. The composting facility will be relocated, and the rest of the design for the rest of the site will be shared at a later date. So that would include the CSO facility, head house, the waterfront open space, the public space, that sort of thing. That's going to take place at a later date.
Okay, well, I have a couple of just clarifying questions and then I'll turn it over to the committee and then we can go to the public. And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but how much area is going to be devoted to the public park section that you guys have been presenting at these community meetings?
David, I think we're going to have to get back to you on that. That's something that we're still developing. Right now, that's part of the CP3 design, which I did mention earlier is in progress.
Okay. So Kevin Keating, can you go back in your slides where you just had a site plan? I just have one question. Well, actually two.
Sure.
I'll tell you when to stop. Yeah, this is fine. So I think actually one of the plans just went by. You said something about asphalt going on in that pink area in front of the salt shed, and I didn't quite understand that label. And I'm trying to understand what's the activity in this pink area aside from the trucks coming in and picking up the plows. Is there anything else going on there? And the salt, obviously.
Right, that is mainly used by DSNY. That's the enclosure. It's kind of how their operations are now. Each of these rectangles here are representative of racks for the plows. There's 3 plows on each rack. So there's 25 racks. There's in total 75 plows. There's a chlorine tank over here, or chlorine calcium chloride tank, sorry, I should say, in the corner, located there. There is a very steep grade right now, which we're having to navigate. We're going from elevation 7 at 2nd Avenue up to flood elevation plane of 14. So I'll probably quickly just jump through that. So we're having to navigate that as we speak. And that's how it's basically playing out. If you could see the elevational grades as they make their way up to the concrete pad and salt shed on the western side.
It's just an asphalt surface is what you're saying.
Right. I don't think I mentioned the word asphalt. Maybe a
No. I just saw asphalt lot, and I didn't know if you were also. I didn't understand that meant that was just the surfacing material.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. So I have a question then. The construction access road, or as labeled in the other plan, and the access alley in this plan are being used by the trucks to get into the salt lot from the side. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. The access alley is going to serve a number of functions. 1, entry into the salt lot for DSNY vehicles. 2, it's going to provide access for DEP to the top of the tanks and to the back of their facility. 3, it will provide access to eventually big reuse and composting, big reuse composting facility, which will be located on where my cursor is. And then eventually any community program that we do incorporate into space, there will be access for any vehiculars that may come during the time. So it is an access alley. It will be a vehicular access alley. We are working and really considering how safely we can actually make this. We want to basically consider public safety number 1, while also basically introducing the needs of the facilities access and egress.
Will that also be asphalt surfaced?
We're hoping not to. We're hoping that we could, again, hopefully, we could provide some treatment where it's seen more as sort of open space and not so much as a particular DOT street. So we're working with the team to try to understand what we can do. Obviously, there's weight and impact requirements that we have to adhere to, but we are optimistic that we could do something really nice there.
Okay, just a quick comment. It seems like we have a lot of vehicular circulation here, and I was just wondering if that entry area in the salt lot and the access alley could somehow be combined to decrease the footprint. I'm just putting that out there as a thought. You don't have to answer that. I will now turn it over to the community, or the panel actually first, the committee, and then we'll go to the community. Does anybody have a question? I can't. Joanna, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hi. Yeah, I was able to attend one of the public outreach meetings that you guys held earlier. And I was wondering if you'd made any design changes based on the input you received at those meetings, because it seems familiar, but I didn't know if I had missed anything.
Yeah, we have, and tell you the truth, a lot of it we are incorporating into our CP3 package. A lot have to do with one of the main key things here is the reason we are moving composting from its temporary location over to the west is to actually provide better access to the canal along the 6th Street turning basin and just as you arrive from 2nd Avenue. I think that's important for the community. It's important for overall master plan. And there are many features and many comments that came from the community that we are continuing to incorporate. This is only, as Kevin Clark mentioned, this is only one facet of a broader project.
Okay. And then on the design of the salt shed itself, you know, it is a functional building. It has a function it has to serve. But I felt that you used a lot of kind of lofty adjectives to describe what really is just a rectangular building with 2 materials. And I am feeling like, you know, we could be true to its function and have it be a little bit more of an interesting incorporation into the public space that's going to be there, whether that's art on the concrete portion, so, you know, a climbing wall element there, if it's not, you know, interfering with vehicular traffic. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but I really would like to see it as more of a community facing facility. And I just wanted to comment on that. And then following on David's discussion about surfacing, just, you know, the more permeable surfacing, the better. And understanding that heavy trucks with plows are going to be using that salt lot parking area, but they're coming up with all kinds of new treatments, and just to keep your eye on making it as permeable as possible. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Van?
Oh, hey, thanks. I'm glad to see the solar panels. Just all my questions are kind of along those lines. That was the maximum amount of solar panels that you could put on there is kind of question one. Been reading about some kind of early work in photovoltaic surfaces instead of asphalt. So I don't know if anyone looked into that, just we're too early for that. And then what the last one is photovoltaic glass. Was that an option, or again, it'd be too early for that in practical use?
To answer the first part of the question, we have a surface area above the roof. It's about 7,600 square feet. We think we could get an array in at about 6,000 square feet. That's being developed as we speak, but there will be photovoltaic cells on top of the salt shed itself. PV glass, something we as a firm have been looking at in different applications, not so much this, quite a fragile material. But yeah, no, we're quite aware of that.
And then I guess the last one was about actually ground surfaces. Been seeing some people trying to put, I mean, this is like a residential private land, but trying to like get it onto the road surfaces or driveways. But I know that stuff's
yeah, integrating PVCs into it's kind of relatively new. It's still in its kind of early stages. You know, to incorporate something like that into a DSNY facility, I think they don't want to be the guinea pigs here. So I think it's definitely something that we're keeping our eye on. Hopefully in the future or near future, we can start incorporating it into our projects, especially the public projects. But at this moment in time, it's a bit too early.
Thank you, Van. Thank you, Kevin. Maddie?
Yeah, I had a question. You said you're going to be putting metal around the building. Salt is very corrosive, as far as I know. Isn't it going to be corrosive not only to the metal surrounding the building, but the concrete and everything that's in there? I see what it does to our roads every winter. This is going to be stored there. There's going to be water coming through. It's going to come out of the building and onto whatever that surface is going to be. If you're not going to be having it to be asphalt, which would be wonderful, it's going to pollute that surface.
Yeah, no, salt is very corrosive material. Concrete is basically what has been used. I mean, you all know the concrete salt shed on Canal Street. It's also what's used for push balls. It has the highest density value and able for DSNY for it to withstand the force of the front end loader pushing the salt against it. As far as the skin of the building, it's a stainless steel corrugated metal mesh, 7 inches on diameter. That is, we went stainless steel. There was a number of other options we were looking at, but because of the corrosiveness of the salt itself, that is where we arrived. And any metals, or I should say steel within the facility will have an applied coating. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Matt, are you still talking? Because you're muted.
Yeah, okay. People were talking about some other surface outside of the building on that access alley that is not asphalt. But if it's going to be any kind of earth or something like that, you've got to worry about salt being picked up by the trucks as they're leaving on their wheels and so on like that, and spillage. No or yes?
Yeah, I think we're cognizant of this. We're looking historically at what DSNY has done in the past, and also trying to apply new methodologies and understanding of what we can do as we're moving into the future.
Cobblestones.
Thank you,
Kevin. I just have a quick question. You said it's going to be stainless steel. I mean, as someone who fishes and has stainless steel gear, salt water corrodes stainless steel. Are you doing the special, like the type 316 or the marine grade? Or, I mean, that sounds pretty pricey.
Yeah, but it's again, it's salt. Salt almost will attack anything, to tell you the truth. Yeah. It's unfortunate if there was another material that they could use to apply to the city streets rather than salt. That might be the best approach here, but we're doing everything we can to ensure the viability of the structure over the duration of its life.
Okay, Jerry.
Okay, what is the current width of 5th Street? And when you turn it into a access alley, will that be altered in any way? And then I'll ask my next question, depending on your answer.
Will the current width of 5th Street be altered in any way?
Yeah.
Yes, it will be.
Will it be narrow,
the final dimensions are still being worked out and determined as they relate to vehicular turning access and access into the facility. But it will be slightly altered. That's right, the width of it. Again,
Okay.
what we wanted to do was kind of give as much waterfront esplanade access as possible. So, what we did is we try to pinch the space between the two facilities and give back this waterfront to the public as best we could.
Okay, I was just wanted to know because the number of plows that you said that are being stored there and then have to be in the winter attached. I can see some of the sidewalk and other access points being impinged by sanitation's vehicles and somewhat destroyed. And I'm worried that in your zeal to create the waterfront access, that we're going to create a disaster on the access road, depending, of course, what material it is, because that number of plows and salt trucks coming in to pick up the salt could create a mess, which would add to, quite frankly, any salt runoff onto the streets and into the canal and things like that. So I'm a bit concerned that we may be taking from one and giving to the other, and it won't be, the end benefit will not be as great as we would like. So please, take into consideration that the plows have to be fitted onto these huge sanitation trucks. The salt trucks have to come in and be filled. And at the same time, when it's not winter, we want to have access to the public, to the waterfront. So it's a balancing act.
That's right.
Please don't forget.
Yeah, certainly, Jared. I'll just add one thing. One of the reasons bringing DSNY salt trucks from the north here is that when they queue, they'll be queuing up. Obviously, big snowstorm, they're all queuing up. And we wanted to draw that traffic further into the site and pull it away from 5th Street. Sorry, I should say 6th Street. Public access, we're really hoping and really working on the master plan to encourage the public to actually access the waterfront, both down here at 2nd Avenue where my cursor is, or up at the other end, and circumnavigate the site at the perimeter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Joanna, you have another question?
Yeah, just regarding the placement of the composting, wondering about smell remediation in the warmer months. Like, I know there's like different bins for different levels of degraded material. Are the stinkier things going to be closer to the salt shed and away from the public space? And just weighing that when thinking about whether or not to move it off of the avenue, which doesn't have any immediate residential neighbors as far as I know. And, access to the turning basin could maybe happen midway, doesn't have to happen at the end. So just to throw that out there.
Yeah, we're in the works of developing that with big reuse. Also, GCC shares responsibilities in some ways with big reuse. They're a big part of their operations in a way. So we feel it's important for those two to be adjacent to each other in many ways. So the configuration of those aeration bays, that's where they move the composting from one to the other, is being worked out as we speak. But those are very good points to note. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Basile?
Yeah, thank you, David. And I understand that this is a plan about the salt shed and the CS and the structures that are going to be built and relocated. And I know you said that the next part of this would be looking at the public access and the waterfront part. I was just wondering if, again, this is another moonshot, if there was any talk or discussion or open-mindedness toward connecting either the 2nd Avenue side to the the Bond Street side, or the 5th Street side to the Carroll Garden side for pedestrian and bike bridge. Just wondering if that moonshot question is on anyone's radar. Thank you.
Yeah, we're certainly aware of that request, and anything that we are planning to present will not preclude the development of a bridge that you're mentioning. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to do it as part of the development on this project, but it certainly would not be precluded.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Is there anybody else in the committee, or maybe we should turn this over to the public? Ty, I can't see if anybody's hand is up.
I don't see any in the moment, Dave, but it would be great if we could unshare the screen just so we can take a look.
Yeah, that would be a big help. I mean, while we're waiting, I think Peter Young is here from Hazen and Sawyer. I don't know if he can answer this question, or Kevin, you can answer the question, but what is the general footprint of the head house retention tank facility on the lot and area?
Don't know if I have that offhand.
I think you can visualize it off the scale there on the site, but I don't have the number off the top of my head either.
Okay.
David, I can send you an email tomorrow on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry about that.
Sure.
David, we do have one hand up from the community. It's Lynn Newman. Lynn, you've done this already tonight, so promoting you over, and you have a couple of minutes to speak. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Thank you, Lynn. Go ahead.
Thanks so much. One thing that I noted in the presentation was the presence of asphalt, and I understand that it needs to, the site needs to handle a high level of truck traffic. I'm certainly not an expert in materiality, but my understanding is asphalt is a black surface that will retain heat. And from a climate change perspective, you know, that there has been a big city effort over the last 10 years in terms of building surfaces, rooftops, where the black surfaces have been changed to white surfaces to try to alleviate this the heat, the urban heat island effect. So I'm wondering if there is any possibility that if what I'm understanding is asphalt as a black heat retention and heat producing surface can be a different type of surface that won't produce heat like I understand that blacktop does. I have a dog, and like if I walk her across a blacktop surface during the summer, like it burns her paws. So this is you know, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Totally understand. It's the heat island effect when dark surfaces like that, you know, pull in the heat of the sun and retain it. What we are trying to do, we're looking at this project holistically. Again, this is one facet of the project. The balance of the site, we're working extremely hard to try to reduce any non-porous surface as much as we can. We are, in certain cases, kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, trying to meet the needs and the requirements of the DSNY while trying to sort of maintain an overall sort of resiliency and sustainability approach. So where we can, we are putting forth as much effort as possible, and where we can't, we, you know, we know it could be, yeah.
But could there be a different surface possibility? I mean, concrete, it's maybe, I don't know. I think it's maybe a more expensive possibility, but it is a more white surface, which would reduce the urban heat island effect.
Certainly, certainly. No, we appreciate that comment. We are, as I mentioned, looking at our options for the access alley, you know, and seeing what we can do there. You know, the surface treatment, which is a little bit more akin to what we'd like to see in a parkscape or something, may happen towards the west end. But again, we're trying to meet the needs of the city agencies as we speak. So that concrete surface treatment might be possible, but we appreciate those comments. Thank you.
As a community, we're really looking at long-term solutions and not short-term solutions. So it's important that we get this right. And we don't want to have to go back and try and fix it 5 or 10 years from now. So let's really think about the comprehensive solutions in terms of both the community and climate change that we know is coming, and not cut corners. And I'm really here to advocate for that.
Agreed. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Maybe-
Ty, do we have anybody else?
We do. Owen Foote again. Owen, you're going to be promoted to the panel now, and you'll have a couple of minutes. You can unmute yourself once you're on our side.
Okay, go ahead when you're ready, Owen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Owen Foote. I'm a member of the Gowanus Treasures Canoe Club, and I just wanted to reiterate one of the points of agreement, number 38, is a condition for the city to consider 2nd Avenue street end access by the salt lot. And I would hope that in any resolution passed this evening would make sure that they consider that. But tonight I'm actually going to speak a little bit more human. When I was a teenager, I was in a wheelchair due to a car accident and lost the use of my legs, but I could use my arms, and so I could canoe, kayak, and if I was to come to Gowanus, I would be able to launch at 2nd Avenue. The city has suggested launching at 6th Street Basin, which is a area off the street So you would have to drag your kayak in your chair all the way down the street compared to scooching along the shoreline and potentially locking your chair up to a pole at 2nd Avenue. Our existing access today is obviously under construction by DEP. I would hope and encourage DEP consider folks with disabilities and prompt use of the waterfront, not having to travel 200 or plus feet to try to use the shoreline. And I know a lot of people in the room might say, well, somebody could just push you in your wheelchair and you can make your way down. But the notion of independence when you don't have the use of some of your limbs is very, very important. So I appeal to you guys to reiterate this, because latest plans that we saw out of DEP deny the use of our existing current New York City Water Trail listed access place at 2nd Avenue. And I appeal to Community Board 6 to make sure that you continue to reiterate that this access point at the dead end of 2nd Avenue is critical. It's not just critical to those who are physically challenged, it's also the sole access point to the entire South Gowanus community. Now that Huntington Street is being denied access due to the previous ULURP application that came before you, this
Owen,
is the
can you wrap
last
it up, please?
opportunity. Thank you, sir. That's it. Last opportunity. I hope you guys do the right thing. Thank you.
Stick around and I think you'll be happy. Anybody else in the community?
Oh, we do have one more hand. Corinne Brenner. Corinne, I'm promoting you to the panel now. You'll have a couple of minutes. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. And Corinne, just, please be mindful of the time. But go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, I wanted to echo some of Owen's concerns about retaining access at that 2nd Avenue point. That was one of the first ways I ever became aware that the Gowanus Canal existed and was part of my neighborhood. So I would also just encourage the board and the plans to try and retain that point of access. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, we do have one more, Alex Greger. Alex, you're being promoted to the panel. Like everyone else, you have a couple of minutes. Please unmute yourself.
Go ahead when you're ready, Alex.
Thank you very much. I was just wondering, what is the storage capacity of the salt, please? In tons?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Alex. I have that information. Unfortunately, it's not at the tip of my tongue. We could certainly get back to you on that. We have that information, but unfortunately, it's literally just not at the tip of my tongue right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess either. David, if it's okay, I'll send that to you with the footprint that you had requested of the CSO facility head house.
Yeah, that's fine.
David, if it was okay, I just wanted to address the the waterfront access. So we are taking a look at what we can do at the end of 2nd Avenue, but I did also want to just correct the statement about access to the water. We are providing, the intention is to provide boat access at the head end of the turning basin, very close to 2nd Avenue, not at the end of the turning basin where it meets the canal. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Someone just yawned, so make sure you mute yourself. Joanna, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I had another materials question, just how long the temporary duration is, and if it is more than, say, a couple of months, if there could be some other material for the temporary fencing other than the cyclone fencing, which is just grim, no matter what adjectives you apply to it. If it's something the neighborhood's going to be contending with for a couple of years, it might be nice to make it something a little more nice to look at.
Thank you. Yeah, well noted.
Ty, is there anybody else in the community?
I see Alex Gregor who just spoke. Oh, he just put his hand down. No, I think that's it, David.
Okay. Kevin Clark, when do you think our committees can see the landscape design?
I'll work with Alicia to get back to you on a schedule for that. So we're pretty early in the design for that. We're literally just about the 30% mark for what we call CP2 and CP3. And then the landscape design, I don't know what the percentage is. It's probably a little bit behind that. But I'll work with Alicia and get back to you with a schedule for that.
All right. Well, I mean, we've seen the landscape design in these other public engagement meetings. I guess a few of us, I can just see in the direct chats here, thought that that was going to happen tonight. We would just see what you presented in these other meetings, but do you not want to do that, or?
Tonight we were here to present the salt shed because that is the it's going to end up being the permanent facility. Everything else that we presented tonight was temporary. And we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you for the overall site design, including the CSO head house, the relocated compost facility, the landscape, and the public open space.
Okay. So are there any other questions for anybody in the design team, which is essentially Anna and Kevin Keating, or Kevin Clark, or Peter Young from Hazen and Sawyer? Does anybody from the community or from the committee want to ask? Otherwise, we can go into, I think we have a resolution to discuss. Okay, good. So I want to thank both Kevins and Anna and Peter for your presentation. You're welcome to stick around, as is the community. As the committee knows, there is a resolution that was circulated about a month ago. Ty, can we put that up on the screen?
Oh yeah, 1 second. For quick reference, I just put a link to it in the chat, but I'll share it on the screen here momentarily.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so a couple of us worked on this after the last public presentation. It actually addresses some of the things that were asked about tonight already. We're proposing a resolution that addresses three things: that a launch site for recreational boating at the north end of 2nd Avenue be included in the site design, and it should be designed in partnership or in collaboration with Gowanus Dredgers. I think actually someone suggested the word collaboration there, the local canoe club. The second item is adding a comfort station with a community room similar in size to the one in Carroll Park. What came up at the last public presentation or public engagement meeting was that the closest public bathroom, actually no one knew where the closest public bathroom was to the park. My guess it's Whole Foods. So we thought that might be a good idea, since there is going to be a public park component at the very west end of the peninsula there. And the third thing was maximizing the public park area by reducing the footprint of the three facilities as presented at the last public engagement meeting on May 12th. I've done just some crude calculations, and it seems everybody's sort of, flexing a little bit here and getting a little bit more than what they had before. I don't want to get into the rights or wrongs of that. That is why I was asking the question about how much, what the footprint was of the retention facility head house. I will tell you the south lot area that was added to the salt lot is 112,000 square feet. My rough guess, and I wanted to get a more accurate number, but my rough guess is that the retention tank facility is about 33,000 square feet. So just using some rough math, it seems like there should be a larger public park than what has been currently presented or recently presented in the public engagement meetings. The last long paragraph from there is actually from Brad Vogel of Gowanus Dredgers, making the argument for the launch site at the end of 2nd Avenue. He makes a reference to what was in the CB6 resolution. And I would add that I would certainly welcome a friendly amendment as per Lynn Newman's comments a few minutes ago about revising the design to help mitigate the heat island effect as in terms of the amount of asphalt and stuff like that. So there it is.
David?
We can talk about it, or I can accept the motion to
David?
approve it. Yes.
Just so we can formalize this and chairs can't make motion, I move that we make the motion as presented. And we need a second.
Okay, Maddie seconds. Okay. Me. Great. Any comments? Anybody want to do the friendly amendment?
I just want to say I read this when you first circulated it. I thought it was right on target. It's not unusual for city agencies to take more than they need and take longer than they should in building the facility. But in this case, we're just dealing with the fact that we're looking to optimize the public's use of the waterfront along the Gowanus Canal. We're not looking to constrain the city agencies, but we're also not looking to let them take excess. So that goes along with what I said in making the motion. That's my
Yeah, I mean, there was quite a bit of, thank you, Jerry. There was quite a bit of lot area acquired to make this happen. And I just think that through that acquisition, there should be a greater public benefit. And I guess from where I'm sitting, I haven't quite seen that in the plans proposed. It seems like the three entities are getting a pretty good chunk, and they should be there. There's no question about that. Just suggesting maybe there's a more efficient layout. I threw out an option earlier about maybe sharing roadway and stuff. And I don't have a huge objection to the design, as it exists, except maybe we need, not maybe, we do need more public park for the community. And this is an opportunity to sort of make sure that's we move in the right direction. I will say again, I am certainly open to a friendly amendment on the heat island effect, but if no one's going to do it,
I would add that as a friendly amendment, and that's what I was getting at when I was talking about permeable paving. I mean, either, lighter paving, permeable, whatever we can do to reduce the impacts.
Great. And I accept that. Any other discussion on the committee? Great. Well, we can't, is anybody against this? I know we can't formally approve it because we don't have a quorum. We'll have to take it up to the executive committee. But put your hand up if you're against it.
We'll have to just present it as a recommendation, not a full motion.
Right.
Did I change the number?
No,
we're not even close.
Okay. Sorry, I had an infusion. It just finished.
Okay, well, that's good. All right, so we'll make a recommendation to the executive committee the next time the executive committee meets, unless this rolls into the September board meeting, which I hope it doesn't go that long. Kevin Clark is still on, so he's obviously hearing this.